I forgot to bring a joke, but look, I matched the flowers. Thank you, Sally.
Good joke.
I matched the flowers. Yay. Well, today I want to start a series on spiritual wisdom for healing. So the whole month of February, we're going to be focused on physical healing for your body. So if there's any ache or pain or owie or upcoming surgery or discomfort, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, this is the month to open to healing all of that. Of the 34 miracles that are recorded in the Gospels that Jesus performed, 23 are about healing. Did you know that? 23 are about healing. In the Gospel of Matthew, when he concluded giving the Beatitudes, it was recorded that he taught as one having authority. That they were just so amazed that he just taught with such definitiveness and such authority and such instruction and such, I always think of David Letterman's top 10 list. Here's your top 10 things you have to really do if you want to connect with God. And he taught with that authority. For all of his teachings, though, he only gave one word when he talked about illness. Only one word when he talked about illness. Not the cause of illness, but the thing that could interfere with healing. The thing that could interfere with healing. So in our series this month, we're going to look at what that teaching is, and then each week we'll look at a spiritual principle for or how to use the spiritual principle that he gave us in the teaching so that we can all live fully healed, healthy, and whole lives. Sound good? Yay. And I know so many of you have met tremendous healing experiences, and so I'm more than willing and welcome to hear your comments about the prayer work and the process that you used in your healing. Jesus emphasized again and again that our part in healing is not to figure out what treatment to follow, how we can be healed, when we will be healed, where we will be healed, who we should see or go to be healed, what our symptoms are, where it hurts. He never asked, how long have you had this? What was your childhood like? Where does it hurt? He never asked any of that. He just healed. There are a couple of instances where he said, when the epileptic boy, he turned to the father and said, how long has this been in him? But by and part, he never asked, all about the illness. He emphasized that our part in healing, the one word that he gave us, that is our part in healing over and over, is belief. It's done for you as you believe. He didn't say that unbelief causes illness, but he said unbelief interferes with your healing. Did you catch that? Unbelief doesn't cause disbelief, probably a better word. Disbelief doesn't cause an illness, but disbelief will interfere with your healing. So today, in the next 3 weeks, I want to share with you some spiritual principles that are foundational to this teaching, so that we can expand our consciousness and open up to a broader appreciation of the Christ Spirit. The spiritual principle that we're going to cover today to change our unbelief to build and create a consciousness of belief is the power of your spoken word. And I think you're going to find this interesting because it's not so much the words that we speak, but we'll look at a process of how he taught the power of your spoken word. Why is it so important to speak words of healing life to your body? Catherine Ponder, in her book Open Your Mind to Prosperity, said the words utter and outer come from the same root, very similar root, so that what you utter becomes outer in your life. You're actually giving the vibration from the root of the tongue, you're capturing the energy of the thought and moving it from the invisible into the visible. It's the first birth of the idea comes out of you in your spoken word. You can have a desire or a dream, but until you speak it, it stays in the invisible. The power of spoken utterances has long been known in spiritual traditions. In the Genesis account of creation, God simply speaks the word, speaks the world into existence, right? Let there be light, and there was light. Let there be formation, and there was formation. And he uses, we see the formula right from the very beginning in the creation of all things, the speaking of the word. In a more mystical sense, in the Gospel of John, the very first chapter, John's the more mystical, ethereal, intuitive gospel. He says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That was the divine Logos. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing was made that was made. It's the power of the Word to create. I've always loved that passage in the Gospel of John for the divine Logos, because you can substitute the word Christ consciousness for the word Word. Did you follow that? Sounds like this. In the beginning was the Christ consciousness, and the Christ consciousness was with God, and the Christ consciousness was God. All things came into being through the Christ consciousness, and without the Christ consciousness, not one thing was made that was made. Doesn't that give you a wonderful understanding and picture of the power of Spirit? We're reminded in the book of Job, thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto you. So again, that power and the vibration of your word. And one of the most powerful examples where Jesus actually confirmed the power of the spoken word and let us see metaphysically the process of how it works is in the story of the centurion who asked for Jesus to heal his servant. And that's the story I want to share with you today and take a look at metaphysically. It's in the Gospel of Matthew and it's in the Gospel of Luke. And let's see, let's just remind ourselves of it. This is a large type Bible, but somehow, could you hold that for me over there? I know why Jim Lee always had somebody else read the scripture. All right, so it's the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 8, beginning in the 5th verse. When he entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him, appealing to him and saying, Lord, my servant is lying at home, paralyzed and in terrible distress. And he said to him, I will come and cure him. And the centurion answered, Lord, I am not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only speak the word, and my servant will be healed. And then he said something very interesting. He said, for I am also a man under authority, with soldiers under me. And I say to one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it. And when Jesus heard him, he was amazed, and said to those who followed him, because Jesus was always teaching not only to the person, but all the crowd that was around him. And he was teaching at all levels of whatever understanding you had. So he said, when Jesus heard him, he was amazed and said to those who followed him, truly I tell you, in no one in Israel have I found such faith. And to the centurion, Jesus said, go thy way. Let it be done for you as you have believed. And the servant was healed in that hour. So we see Jesus speak to the power of belief. But I want to take that apart for you metaphysically a little bit so that we can use it in our own lives, apply it to our own lives. It starts out, what's significant in the story is what Jesus has said to us over and over about what we must do to experience healing, and that's believe. You have to have belief. In the story metaphysically, Jesus, of course, represents the Christ consciousness of healing and life. The centurion is the human self of us. He is our conscious mind. He's our conscious mind that where we know we have command over something, that we can, he understood the operation of power. He knew when used correctly it could produce amazing results. And he recognized himself as a man of authority with personal power to command his soldiers to do something, and they would do it. So he recognized the operation of the law. I can say this, and it gets done. I can do that, and it happens. He recognized it as personal power. And the soldiers that he commanded represent to us our thoughts and our feelings. So the centurion, your conscious mind, has the power to direct your soldiers, your thoughts and your feelings, right? And to make things happen. He also then was there about his servant. And your servant, like the soldiers, represents a thought or a feeling that has served you faithfully, served you to help you accomplish things in your life. What that looks like for us in our message today about healing is maybe you have a really strong constitution of life. You're healthy. You're healthy most of the time. You've been healthy your whole life. But all of a sudden, that starts to falter, starts to get weak in you. Maybe it's kept your body healthy for your entire life, but it begins to falter. It says this story is also in the Gospel of Luke, and it says the servant began to get weak. In Matthew, it says he was paralyzed or stuck, you see. It shows up that maybe you're telling yourself you can't do all that you used to do. And so your faculty of strength is faltering. Maybe you bend over to tie your shoes and your back is stiff and you think, oh, I'm getting older, and your faculty of youthfulness and vitality is beginning to fail. It's served you all your life, but now you're thinking you're tying into aging, and your faculty or thoughts about youthfulness and vitality are shrinking. Maybe your joy is challenged with depression. You've been a happy person most of your life. All of a sudden, there's just this thing in you that, isn't joyful anymore. Maybe there's a tumor that shows up on an X-ray, and your belief in wholeness begins to falter. So the centurion has this servant, has this thought that served him his whole life, and it's beginning to shift and change, die and get weak and be diminished. And so he seeks out Jesus. He seeks out the Christ. Your conscious mind turns to the Christ Spirit. And the centurion says, I get the process. I got a lot of personal power, but he humbles himself and says, there's spiritual power that's greater than me, that has greater capacity than I alone can do, than I alone can accomplish. And he humbles himself. I'm not worthy to come under your roof, but only speak the word, and my servant will be healed. So your conscious mind turns to the Christ and says, speak the word in me. Now, there's no affirmation there that we're speaking over and over and over and over. Speak the word in me. That's getting still and listening within for the Christ Spirit to give you the confirmation of life, to give you the confirmation of peace, to give you the confirmation of strength, or to become one with it, because it's not really God out there giving us something. So the centurion reached out to the Christ. He fully understood that there is spiritual power that's far greater and more capable than his personal power. And as he met Jesus and stood in full comprehension of the authority of the Christ, he humbled himself and he let the word of life be spoken in him. Wasn't, now I'm whole, now I'm well, now I am this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that. The word, the power of your spoken word, isn't the word necessarily that you speak, it's the word that's spoken in you, that comes up and out of you. When Jesus saw the centurion understood the operation of the law and deferred his personal power to the omniscience of the Christ, he was blown away. He said, nowhere have I seen anybody get a hold of this like this guy did. And then he says, go thy way, it's done for you as you have believed. Go thy way, keep doing what you're doing. Continue in the thought that you direct that power, that you open to that power, that you receive that power, and whatever is faltering in you will be healed, will be strengthened. Life is a divine idea. Health and healing are processes in that. Divine ideas must be believed in order for you to have your healing. And the way we build belief and achieve results is with our words. But they're the words that come up that are confirmed in us, not necessarily the words that we speak in affirmative prayer. Now let me show you what that looks like. in a practical example. When I was in my 30s, I got strep pneumonia. They call it galloping pneumonia because it spreads so fast and kills so quickly. 2 healing experiences in my life, open heart surgery and pneumonia. Both of those I work through spiritually and really feel that I'm alive today for a lot of reasons, but the pneumonia almost took my life. My left lung was filled and my right lung was filling. And they came in and they said, we have to intubate you. And most people don't wake up from intubation. We're not sure we can save you. So let your family know, get with whoever you need to get to, because tomorrow we're going to intubate you. So I was, as you would imagine, deep in prayer the whole time. I'd been in the hospital, and for pneumonia, they give you an IV antibiotic for 72 hours. And if that doesn't work, they change to a different antibiotic for 72 hours. And if that doesn't work, they change to a different antibiotic for 72 hours. So I had been there through 10 changes of antibiotics, 30 days, and I was not responding to any of them. So I wasn't responding to the medication. But I had a lot of time for a prayer, and I was in a double hospital room, but I was all alone in the room by myself. There wasn't another patient in there. And so I could tell that the healing life in me was, I was hoping I would live. I was in my 30s, and I thought, people don't die of pneumonia in their 30s. That's like old people's disease, you know. It was just so hard to believe that I was going to die of pneumonia in my 30s. So anyway, I was sitting in my room and using the affirmation, all power and all strength come from the silence and the stillness. My mind is at peace and my body is healed. Because all healing does come in a state of peace, not a state of chaos. And I could tell that that was beginning to vibrate in the room, because the nurses would come in and say, I would love to take my breaks in here. You have the most peaceful room in the entire hospital. So I thought, okay, they can feel the vibration of peace that's beginning to happen. And then one day I was sitting in my bed, deep in prayer, and on the wall on this side of my bed was just this blank wall. And I looked over, and in through the wall came this picture frame, big picture frame, like 4 feet by 5 feet. The vision of this picture frame, and in the frame there was a picture of a woman. And the woman was kind of plump and older, and she was wearing a black taffeta dress with a high turtleneck with a little lace around the top of the turtleneck, had her hair up in a bun and glasses. And she said, I'm Dr. Emily Cady. She said, I've cured lots of pneumonia, and I can help you. And she faded back out of the wall. And I went, oh man, they're giving me some good drugs. But it wasn't that. It wasn't that. So what happened next is this, I stayed in prayer, and there were a series of things that happened. One, this nurse came in, an African-American nurse, and she said, oh, honey, I've cured lots of old men with pneumonia. I can help you. And she said, and she went in my bathroom and filled the shower with steam. And she helped me walk in there because I was only 89 pounds at this point. I could barely walk. And she put me in the shower, I remember, and I was leaning on the wall, and she's holding onto my arm outside the shower, and she says, breathe the steam, breathe the steam, breathe the steam. Every day I'll get you in and you breathe the steam. So that was one thing. And then that night my fever spiked, and I was just drenched in sweat and hot. And I rang for the nurse, and this different nurse, a man, came in, and I said, I'm burning up. And so he went out of the room, and all of a sudden he comes back with this big cart, and he packed me in ice. And then for some reason, somewhere in the hospital, he got one of those little tiny oscillating fans. And he pulled my tray table over, and he put the little oscillating fan on me with all the ice around me. And the coolness brought my temperature down, Now notice, no high-tech remedies here. All things that could be done except for the electricity and the oscillating fan. All things that could have been done in the 1800s, and my body was responding to the steam and to the ice. So while the next day I wasn't any worse, I wasn't any better, they didn't intubate me. So now I'm thinking Charles Fillmore's 12 powers. Phil teaches 12 powers. I have to do the 12 powers to stay alive. I am life. I am life. I am life. I needed love because I love my life and I wanted, and then I sort of needed wisdom, and I needed all 12 powers, but I focused on I am life. And this is where I did speak the word. I did speak the word, I am life. And I was working with that affirmation of creating peace. But I spoke the affirmation, I am life, I am life, I am life. Lots of time in prayer. Lift up in prayer, turn to the Christ, I am life, I am life. And I remember this one day, I spoke it out loud, I am life, I am life. And then I whispered it, sometimes like I lead us in meditation here, I am life, I am life, I am. And then I took it down into the silence. And in that moment, in that silence, and you can feel the vibration of it, I was no longer affirming life. In that moment, I became life. There was no separation between the universal principle of life and me. I was life. And that life, that word of life, was spoken in me and confirmed in me to the point where I knew that I was healed in that moment. Now, coming out of that meditation, I still had 106 fever. I still had stuff because it took the physicality of my body 3 days for the fever to break, for the physicality of my body to catch up with the wholeness that had been confirmed in my soul. But I made union with that faculty of life, and the word life was spoken in me. It wasn't so much I was saying, I am life, but the centurion in me, the conscious mind in me, was directing my thought to turn to the Christ and then allow the Christ to speak the word in me. You see it? Can you see the pattern? Are you following me? Okay, good. So, last thing that was kind of phenomenal is I got well, I got out of the hospital, I went home, and there was a bookcase in my hallway where I had some of my mom's things, her books and things, and my mom raised us, you never mark in a book. Never, 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 never. You never dog ear a page, you don't write in a book, you sit with the book, you turn the pages very carefully, there's just nothing you ever mark in a book. So I was in the bookcase looking for something to read, and I pulled out an old Unity magazine from 1978. And on the front cover of the magazine, my mother had written in ink, page 18. And I just went, wow, what would be so important that she would write on the cover of the magazine? So I turned to page 18, and it's an article about taking on or building the Christ consciousness. The magazine is this size, and so on this side is an article about building the Christ consciousness. This side is a full-page photo of a woman in a black taffeta dress with a turtleneck, a little lace here, with her hair in a bun and glasses, and it says, Dr. Emily Cady. Same woman that appeared on the wall a few weeks before was in a magazine from 1978 that my mom wrote, something she'd never done. I mean, that was set in motion years before. There's no time or space in God. Well, the reality is, when we say yes to the reality of God that's seeking to express through us, amazing things can happen. Mystical things, but the right things. You're being guided, you're being led. When we attain oneness with the invisible life force, a new and higher energy sweeps through us. And when the word that we speak is sent to a receptive mind, it penetrates the ethers, and it shows us a picture of what's possible. It shows us a picture of what is. And then it's our responsibility to bring that word back and anchor on earth as it is in heaven. To anchor the reality of spirit on earth as it is in heaven. The words you speak are a spiritual prototype that's already in existence in the mind of God and already in existence in you. You can say, I am life, and that is a divine quality, a divine faculty in the mind of God, but it's also already in you. Some people feel uncomfortable speaking as if what they were affirming is already true now. They feel like they're lying to themselves or they're being hypocritical. But Dr. Austin, it was a British philosopher, in his book, How to Do Things with Words, he says, affirmative prayer is a performative sentence. It doesn't state a fact about a situation, but rather brings the fact or the spiritual truth of the situation into being. In its simplest sense, he says, when you say, I am in perfect health now, you are intentionally bringing this state of being into reality by uttering the words. Your words may or may not immediately bring the desired result, but they are not attempts at self-deception. They are building blocks in consciousness. They are building blocks of belief. And belief is the what? The key ingredient that Jesus said brings healing. So, this month, as we study healing, I invite you to touch one area of your life that you would like to take authority and dominion of in your thinking and connect that to the Christ presence. You have the greatness of spirit in you, and you have the power to use it successfully. And we're going to look over these next few weeks at how we use that power. You have soldier thoughts and feelings that will follow your direction and that will lift you into that mystical realm of the Christ mind where all things are possible. And where there in that realm the word is spoken in and through you, and then you bring it back to earth and anchor the reality of heaven on earth in your life. I invite you to set aside a time every day to speak bold words of good, describing what you want for your life. And for every 15 minutes of inspirational reading and study that you do, speak 5 minutes out loud. I am divine health. I am divine life. I am wholeness. Take hold of something that's easy to speak for you and that you can commit to memory, so that if doubt and difficult shows up, you've got it in you. Every little cell in my body is healthy. That's a good one. Every cell, organ, and function of my body is filled with the radiant life of God. I am the radiant life of God. I am, I am, I am. That's one of our hymns. I am in perfect health now. Whatever it is, your little mantra, your little branding, that you just can anchor in you. My friend and classmate, ministerial classmate Gregory, always uses the word positive. When you ask, how are you today, Gregory? Positive. What's going on in your life? It's all positive. And so he's branded himself with that word positive. It's just in him. You want to pick something that becomes your branding, that becomes your spiritual identity for life, that you can say quickly and often, and practice speaking it out loud 5 minutes a day. Remember the song, Oh, what a beautiful morning, oh, what a beautiful day. I've got a wonderful feeling, what? Everything's going my way. To sing is to pray twice. So pick something out that works for you. Don't be vague about your healing unless you want healing to be vague in its response to you. Right? Give authority to the power of the Christ within you. Give authority to the life of Christ within you. Let it have dominion in every part of you until you are renewed and made whole in every way, until you match the Word of God that lives in you. And then you'll find you'll go your way, and it will be done for you as you have what? Believed. Right. So let's seal this in prayer for just a moment and take this idea we're going to work with this week on dominion and authority. The power of the spoken word in you. Loving presence, we know that we are under authority that our conscious mind has authority, and that when we are in oneness with you, we can say to any circumstance or condition, be healed. Be conformed to the perfection of divine life. The Christ presence within hears and responds and confirms. Divine order, divine love, divine life reigns supreme. And miracles follow miracles. Total and complete health and well-being become you. You become life in those moments, and you know that you are healed. I am divine life. I am divine life. Would you affirm it with me? I am divine life. And so it is. It is done for you as you have believed. Amen. Amen.